Carolyn, thank you for joining me today for Gimme a Break. And I'd like to know, Carolyn, what you actually do for a break.
Well, I have two main things that I'm doing at the moment, knitting and tapestry, um, both of which I thoroughly enjoy. And sometimes I feel like doing one and sometimes the other. So depends how I feel.
Now, that is creative, knitting and tapestry. Have you got some things to show us today?
I've got a couple of cushions. This is
Oh,
it's
beautiful.
just plain knitting, but with random wool. And the difference it makes, as opposed to just a plain color, I think is amazing. But I love colors. So the other cushion I've got is this one, which, as you can see, it's disappearing against the background. Sorry, it's plain knitting at the background, and if I can just hold part of it up to you, I've done some tapestry squares on it of water birds and land birds. There's a robin. They're just little cartoon drawings really on that. So a lot of people, when they're knitting, will make blankets from little squares. And I've seen hundreds in my time. And it's something I do mainly if I've got nothing else that I'm working on. I just knit some squares. But I've made one actually for our home, which is not quite finished. So there are threads hanging off it. And when you're making a blanket using squares, if you're just using oddments, it's fine, but if you just think a little bit about the colors that you're using and where you put them. I have to stand up to show you this. There we go. So you can see there that I've made a pattern with the colors rather than just doing it randomly. So it's something very simple. Anyone who can just do basic knitting can do that. But it's just makes it a bit more special.
They're all beautiful because they're all different and very creative as well. Do you think God is a creative God? I mean, when you look at creation, you can smell flowers, you can touch things. Would you agree with that or not?
Absolutely. I mean, I just love going out and just looking at the flowers, the birds, everything. I mean, um, as you know, one of my things is birds, and this is a tapestry that I did a very long time ago. The
Let's
golden
have a look at
pheasant.
that one, shall we? Wow.
So that's a bit more. Sorry, I'm dropping things here. That's a bit more intricate. So that's tapestry, not knitting. Um, Birds just fascinate me because it just looks like God had fun with a paint box.
Yes.
It's just amazing, the colors and shapes and sizes and everything. Yeah.
And do you feel when you're knitting, does it make you feel relaxed? And do you find it therapeutic?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I don't tend to get stressed very often, thankfully. Um, but yes, it is relaxing. Just doing the same thing over and over when you're knitting, it can really calm your nerves. And I know they've done studies with autism where they've taught people to knit and given them knitting to do, and it's helped.
Yeah, I've actually read that myself and read that it's actually good. Knitting is very good for your health and a good hobby to take up
Yeah.
because it helps conquer depression and it is helpful for people to unwind and relax and helps de-stress people. So that must be a good thing to take up, a very good hobby to take up. Carolyn, in Psalm 139, I was reading that Bible verse where it says, "You knit me together in my mother's womb. And just looking at your beautiful creations there of knitting and the birds and the tapestry, I can see how intricate the work is. And I think that's like God. You know, he made us in an intricate way, and also as individuals as well. Now, I also know that you like to go around to lots of different places in your motorhome. Tell us
Yeah.
a bit about that, some of the places that you have been to, please.
Well, one of the things we've been doing is when we've been in a new place, we've gone to the local churches. We've been to Sunday services, but outside of that, we've gone into the local C of E churches in the little villages where we've been, and it's been absolutely fascinating. It's not something I thought I would enjoy doing, but going and looking at the history, and often particularly in the small villages, the history of the church is the history of the village as well. And one particularly in Beddingham in Norfolk we went to, a large part of the church was Saxon. So we're talking before 1066. You know, and these places are still standing. And some of them, again, it was one in Norfolk, and I can't remember which one. The rood screen, which is, for those that don't know, it's the wooden screen between the altar and the chancel and the rest of the congregation, which is usually a carved wooden screen. One of those had painting on it from the 14th century. And this, it's just amazing that it's survived all these years. You know, it's incredible. And some of the places we've been to see wildlife, mainly birds, have been amazing. We went to the Norfolk Broads, and there was a place near Banbury that we went as well, to see the ducks and geese. Yes, just incredible. But you, going back to you saying about the psalm where it says that God knit me together in my mother's womb, that's one of Simon's favorites. And whenever I was pregnant, or one of our children has been pregnant, daughters obviously, he always said God's doing his knitting.
Oh, that's lovely, isn't it? And it is a bit like that as well, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you feel then that God gives us all a talent in some way to use in life?
I do, but I also think that that can change over time, because something I enjoyed doing when I was 20, you know, I might not like so much now. And I think things change, but I think anything like that comes from God. End of story as far as I'm concerned. You know, whatever gifts you have, they come from God.
Yeah, I would agree. And Romans 12, verse 6 tells us that God gives each a special talent for doing things well. So we should use them. Do you think we can lose them if we don't use them?
Oh, absolutely. Yes. I mean, something like the knitting that I do, I don't think you can forget how to do that. You know, I mean, the often quoted point is about learning to ride a bike, isn't it? That once you've learned, you never forget. But there are some things that I think definitely you can lose. I used to play the clarinet, and I haven't got one at the moment, but whilst I could pick one up and I would remember what notes to play, it's not going to be anywhere near as good as it used to be when I was practicing every day. You know, so yeah, there are some things you can lose.
Yeah. So you have seen some lovely architecture on your travels as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And some people have great imaginations like that, don't they, when they're building the design and things. So I think that is a lovely creative thing that people can make from different materials. So coming to conclusion, Carolyn, what would you say to somebody who would like to take up knitting as a beginner? Where would they start?
Oh, well, you need someone to teach you. I mean,
Right.
that's the bottom line. Having said that, one of our daughters does crochet, and she's simply learned online, and she's amazing. She can make anything. I mean, she's been selling stuff that she makes. She is that good. But knitting, you need someone at least to show you the basic steps. And it always used to be, you know, mother to daughter or grandmother to granddaughter, whatever. But I don't think people do that as much these days. Plus, there are so many other things to do. I mean, neither of our daughters knit because they chose not to. You know, I taught all four of our children how to knit, but there's one of our sons says he still can, but whether he really can or not, I don't know. But someone starting out at places like Hobbycraft, they do classes, and also particularly in villages, they tend to have knit and natter groups, and I'm sure, you know, somebody there would be able to help if you didn't know anyone that was knitting.
Yes, and that is a great place to start. Some good top tips there from you, Carolyn.
Well,
Carolyn,
I must just say that I'm not pushing Hobbycraft. Other craft stores are available.
lovely. Carolyn, can I thank you for coming today and sharing with us about your hobbies? It's been really interesting to talk to you. And I have to say, you have been so creative. And myself, I like birds and I love colour. And that is just beautiful what you have shown us today. And I think you've probably inspired some people out there today to get on with knitting. So, Carolyn, thank you so much for joining me for Give Me a Break. Thank you, Carolyn. God bless you.